Daniel James White is the first person in San Francisco to be charged under the new death penalty statute, better known as Proposition 7. District Attorney Joe Freitas has filed the 2-count action against the former supervisor. White, who surrendered himself to Northern Station, has been charged with the felony of willfully, unlawfully, and with malice aforethought, murdering George Moscone and Harvey Milk.
Both victims, Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk, were duly elected officials, and the killing of them was in retaliation of and to prevent them from carrying out their public duties.
Provisions of Proposition 7, calling for the death penalty if a public official is murdered, will apply if White is convicted. That could mean San Quentin's death row and the use of the gas chamber for putting a convicted felon to death. Whatever happens, the charge is almost stun with irony. Dan White, a strong law and order man, was an ardent supporter of Proposition 7 in the election just 3 weeks ago. District Attorney Joe Freitas and Supervisor Harvey Milk campaigned hard to defeat the new Death Penalty Act. And now, Freitas must use it to prosecute the murder of Milk and Mayor Moscone. Marilee Beck, Channel 5 Eyewitness News.
County Jail at the Hall of Justice. White was out talking to his attorney when we were permitted to photograph it. There was almost nothing in the room. 3 books, the morning sporting green, and a small picture of his child. The books, The Trail of the Fox, Robert Kennedy's A Memoir, and the Guinness Book of Sports Records. This is an artist's version of White in that cell. He'll be arraigned tomorrow morning on 2 counts of murder and could easily enter a plea at that time. San Francisco Sheriff Gene Brown talked to me about White's first full day in jail.
We had a 24-hour security watch on him, and because he's over on the security sick bay section, and it's a single cell, and so we have a deputy sitting right outside 24 hours. We change the deputy every hour.
How's he been eating?
Well, he ate breakfast this morning at 6:30. He had bacon, eggs, toast, grits, coffee, and so he ate all of his breakfast.
What's his mood like? Is he talking to anybody?
Yes, he talked to some of the deputies. Matter of fact, they were talking about football in the game last night, and then I think one of the games between the police and fire, and so he's been talking.
How would you describe his attitude?
That's hard. You know, I'm not a psychiatrist, and so as far as emotional state or anything, he was interviewed yesterday by our chief psychiatrist and medical doctor, and so evidently they cleared him that things are okay, but to watch.
You're very concerned about him not being alone for a moment. Is suicide a thought?
Well, it is a thought. We don't know what might happen because we want to make sure that we provide safety for everyone up here.
Have a lot of people seen him so far outside of the officialdom?
I would say that his sister was here this morning, and his wife and his mother have seen him yesterday, and his attorney, of course.
Of the 6 jail facilities operated by the San Francisco Sheriff's Department, this one here on the 7th floor of the Hall of Justice is by far the one with the greatest security. It's a foregone conclusion that as long as Dan White is in custody in San Francisco, he'll be here at the county jail on the 7th floor of the Hall of Justice.
If you'd been in the courtroom for the past 3 weeks, you'd know tonight that Dan White's jury delivered a careful verdict based on what they had heard in the courtroom. It began with the anguished tape recording of Dan White's confession, a bit of evidence terribly valuable to the defense, but presented by the prosecution. The tape set the emotional tone for the trial. No one in the courtroom could hear that tape and not feel some empathy for White. The jury was certainly no exception. Each day, White's wife Marianne sat in the front row and tearfully talking about the man she loved whose moods she didn't understand. Never in those 3 weeks was the jury reminded, in anything but a coldly analytic manner, of the 2 men who died, Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk. Never was the jury presented with the vision of Gina Moscone as the city had seen her the day of the memorial service at City Hall, and never did they hear her story of life without her husband. Late today, District Attorney Joseph Freitas, who guided the prosecution, admitted emotion had impressed the jury.
I think the jury was taken by the whole emotional aspect of this trial, by his wife, his background, the politics that led to the murders, and that was something that just didn't overcome.
And the jury heard 5 psychiatrists say that Dan White had lost control of his emotions when he killed the mayor and Harvey Milk, lost them to the extent that he couldn't have premeditated the killings or harbored malice toward his victims, states of mind required for murder convictions. But the prosecution presented only 1 psychiatrist, and he hadn't done his job. What's more, the prosecution apparently didn't ask him to do more, and he fell victim to a strong cross-examination by the defense. After that psychiatrist's testimony, the course the trial was taking led Supervisor Carol Ruth Silver to call the prosecution and offer witnesses who would say Dan White never appeared mentally disturbed to them. But this came only after the jury had heard several witnesses to his good character, among them a prosecution witness, Homicide Inspector Frank Falzon, a longtime friend of White's, who on cross-examination said that White was, quote, a man among men. In the end, a young lawyer's career was made when Douglas Schmidt persuaded a jury to knock down what the prosecution originally thought was a certain death penalty case, knocked it down to a verdict of voluntary manslaughter that will put Dan White in jail for no more than 7 2/3 years.
I'm pleased that the jury was able to put aside the emotion of who was killed and look at the facts and be objective about it, and I think they were. But, God, that's not going to help the Moscone family, and that's not going to help all of the people that loved Harvey Milk, and I'm sure there are a lot of them.
Let's get out of here. Turn the light on. Let's get out of here. Let's go, Mary!
There goes the tear gas. There goes the tear gas. And we're looking right at it. We're getting it. Come on. The cops are almost hit too.